Five-1, welcome to another episode of the Five-1 Speedway show. My guest last time was Stefan Nilsson. Unfortunately, we're having a few problems with this background for this episode tonight, so I do apologise. But everything else is going to go smoothly, even though we had a few technical issues getting this all sorted out. My guest tonight is a Wolverhampton legend. He has won countless things with Sweden, both at junior level and at senior level. He's been a Grand Prix rider. He's come back from serious injury. He's now part of the Dackarna team behind the scenes. We're working on the track and everything. So please welcome to the show, Mikael Max.
Thank you very much.
How you doing, mate? You all good?
Yeah, all good. All good this end, yeah. It's
That's good to hear.
Middle of winter and quite hard weather.
I can imagine it's quite cold outside and maybe a bit of snow on the floor.
We've had some snow, but not now. But it's been very windy lately, so that's not a favorite of mine, really. That's the worst, I think.
That's the thing, because I keep seeing like on Facebook and stuff like that, like the ice racers are all getting ready to go out and do their obviously the ice speedway season and things like that. Do you follow that at all?
Not really, no. I don't. I never had. I've been to a few meetings, and of course, when you go to the occasional meeting, ice racing, it's like it's quite shocking how fast it is, So, but no, it's mainly more up north in Sweden, so it's quite long distances to travel to go to league meetings. I think it's maybe 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours drive, I think.
Mm-hmm. So fairly local is what you're saying. Really?
No. Catch a flight up there.
Yeah.
But up there it's colder.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I've seen pictures from other friends in Sweden and things like that in the past. I've seen how snowy and how cold it is and everything. So I'm quite glad that in England it's not that cold, but we still moan about the cold over
here. Yeah.
That's all right.
But like I said, the wind is the worst. But those guys, they fair play. They're hard people to be able to. I couldn't even ride in that. Cold weather. I think I freeze to death.
I think a lot of people do that after a while. Yeah, that's the main thing. But how's things been with you anyway with like the COVID stuff recently? Have you all been good, well and safe, and got all jabbed and everything?
Yeah, it's worked out. I haven't, like, personally. Obviously, you see what's going on around you, but personally, I haven't been that much affected really because I have a job where I don't meet loads of people every day. So it's more like small groups of people that I work close with, and not even that. A lot of times I'm outside as well working. So so it's been. But for those who work at schools and crowded places, I mean, it's a different thing. It's going to affect you differently. But it's at the moment it's quite bad. A lot of people off work, and a lot of people are ill as well. But it's not that many hospitalized. I think it's most people can handle it.
Well, that's good to hear, because obviously, send all our best wishes to everybody in Sweden from here, really, because, it is terrible. And of course, hopefully this year will be a bit more normality of life, not just for Speedway and sport, but just in general, people just need to get back on their feet and live a normal life again more than anything.
Yeah, I think that Sweden has had a different approach than most other countries. So it hasn't been hard lockdowns or anything like that. They've been trying to trust the individual more, is sort of the thing. So they obviously, try and not see too many people and things like that. But it hasn't been they haven't been hard with the legal side, if you say like that. It's been quite free and not too bad. But obviously, like we're talking Speedway now, I hope that this can pass as quick as possible now, and then we can get a normal season and get off to a start with crowds and everything. I hope.
Yeah, because obviously Sweden ran the league last year. From what all accounts, from photos and from videos that I saw and everything looked like it was running near enough as normal as possible. Obviously there's probably other restrictions around the stadiums, which you probably would know better than what I would in that situation. Because obviously, again, I know how England ran, and England ran pretty well with the crowd restrictions that we had at most tracks. But how was it for like the Swedish league? I mean, obviously I know that you work at Dackarna, Melilla, and of course that's a big old stadium anyway. So I can imagine when there was a limited capacity, it seemed very, very quiet there.
Yeah, it was very quiet, and I think it's hurt the sport quite bad because last season when they opened up again for the crowd to come, we never had a big crowd there. So I think that it's a pretty serious situation, and how we can get the crowd back again, I don't really know. But hopefully
I
it
think it's going to
will.
be a case of it if it goes back to some sort of normality, and things like that, and people start coming out maybe more and things like that. Then maybe the crowds will come back and things like that. But I mean, was the racing all good last year and everything?
You can't fault the product. It was fantastic, and Dackarna last year had a fantastic team. So it was Jason Doyle was there. He rode fantastic. We have Janowski. We had Ty there. So a lot of top class racing, but it didn't seem to help. The people didn't come anyway, and I think I don't know what's going on with that. I was hoping myself that when they missed the year, that maybe they'll come back in masses, but it didn't happen like that, and they really struggled to get over. I say 1,000 people was sort of. We had some bad weather too. It was we had some rain offs and things like that don't help. But I think yeah, for sure it's a serious situation with the crowds, and I hope maybe it's people are scared or whatever to go to Speedway. I know the demographic of the crowd. The crowd is quite old in Speedway. So that obviously is people that may be vulnerable to this, and that can maybe scare a few off, maybe. But we have to work harder, I guess, to try and get young people there. Is the main thing, I think.
Yeah, it's attracting that new generation of fans, really.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, again, from my point of view and everything, let's say that the Swedish Elite Syrian looks fantastic. The product's fantastic. And to name off having Ty and Jason and Janoski as your 1, 2, 3 in one club, that is some of a team you've got there in Dackarna last year. I'll be more surprised if you didn't win the league or anything like that, with the guys that you did have. But I mean, maybe is it because of maybe the lack of actual Swedish riders in the teams now that are not drawing fellow Swedish fans to the tracks?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, it doesn't help for sure. It would have been. I mean, we got one top guy really at the moment in Frederick Lindgren.
Yeah,
and I think that it would help to have maybe a little bit wider top riders. We got some other good riders, but I think in the Grand Prix series it would help Sweden for sure to have maybe one more, and underneath there we should have maybe a handful of riders that can really compete at the same level as Lindgren. And we don't really have that. It's a bit of a step down, and then there's some good riders behind. Don't get me wrong, like Jacob Torsell and Kim Nilsson and blokes like that. But you know, they are very good in league. But I think to be sort of middle in the Grand Prix or top in the Grand Prix, I think they got a few steps to go yet.
Yeah, I mean, the Speedway of Nations comes to mind, especially for Sweden this year. Unfortunately, the injury to Jakob Torsell, and have someone like Philip Helmström Bangs come in, you know, a kid who's only just like 17 years old, you know, and captured the hearts of everybody really in the whole tournament. You know, I mean, that kid's got some talent. I remember seeing him on the 80cc's and 250s and things like that, and thinking, geez, this kid's going to go somewhere if he just keeps his head screwed on. And by the looks of it, he's heading in the right direction. So maybe there is a glimmer of something there to come.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a special guy. And I think he's got something that maybe the other riders that I mentioned maybe don't have, because they are sort of slowly progressing, you know, in the shadows a little bit. But this guy hopefully can get into top class speedway earlier, you know, and progress from there. So you get into the Grand Prix, let's say, at a little bit younger age, and then you know, test your wings there and progress from there. I think that's really what we're looking for.
Well, fingers crossed, because I think you know, if he dabbles his toe into maybe a few more leagues, even into the British League, you know, again, it's a good place to learn, because obviously the different shapes of tracks over here and things like that. Like Monmore, for example, tight, technical, and then you go to the new National Stadium, big and wide and huge. So, you know, it's nice to have a contrast, you know, and things like that. But talking about these young kids and everything, I'm going to start off asking about, how did you get started in your career? With obviously you've got yourself, well, you've got brother Peter, and obviously Magnus, who've also ridden and things like that. So how did all of you guys get sort of started in Speedway then?
Yeah, we. It was my father really that he started at quite late. He started to ride speedway when he was 27 years old.
Okay.
And just rode for fun really. But he had talent, you know, because he started very late but became quite good. But it was lower league racing, but he was scoring quite a lot of points, and obviously it was a natural step for my big brother PK to start, and then I just progressed from there, and Magnus the same. We all joined in, and of course in Sweden you start when you at a young age, 12, start with the 80cc bikes. So we all did that, you know, PK, me, and Magnus, and then we were based in Mariestad, the Eagles in Sweden.
Yeah.
And so and it was a successful club. They had a good program for the uni team, and then you got into the elite league team, you know, right after. So I think PK went straight from the 80cc's and straight in the team, and then I did the same. So once I've done the 4 years on the 80cc's, I was straight into the elite league first meeting that year in '89.
Mm.
Was yeah.
Yeah, because I follow Speedway history, and I love the Speedway history. So, and I followed the because when I was a kid and everything like that, Screen Sport in the UK covered the Swedish Elite League and
Oh
things
yeah.
like that. And I managed to find a couple of clips on YouTube. Which I haven't unfortunately got to show you tonight, but I've seen them of a young self with you partnered with a certain Kelvin Tatum, who was the
Yeah.
number one at the time, and
Yeah.
things like that, and you guys mixing it and things like that, and it's great to see you because this meeting I watched was from Vastovic, so of course Vastovic being vastly wide and everything,
Yeah.
and all that sort of thing, it was a good meeting to watch. But seeing a young Mikael Max, mixing it with these top Swedish boys, like I think it was like Lilly Johansson was riding, and you had Rick Miller in your team, and people like that, and of course that's still a strong team even in the early 90s.
Yeah. I think we won the league there. Was it 92?
Yeah, 92, yeah.
92, 93, 90. We had 3 years on the trot where we won the league, and then I think we had runners up, and then the year after we won again, I think. So it was a very successful time for Mariestad, and it was good memories from that club, and that's how we got into it. And obviously, you mentioned Kelvin Titan there. He in my beginning of my career, beginning of PK's career, he meant a lot. Because with the professionalism and the way they worked on the bikes and equipment was new to us in Sweden, so we learned a lot from that, and it was for sure a big influence in the career to be around someone like that. And things didn't get worse either, because when we finally got to England and joined Wolverhampton, of course, my brother before me, there we had Sam Ermolenko to work with and learn a lot from, and he was very technical with the bikes and everything. So that was also a big influence.
So was it Peter who then suggested to Pete Adams and Chris Van Straten to get you to come along to Wolverhampton then? Because I know you joined late in '93 when they were hunting down the British League Championship against Bellevue. And of course, it came down to that famous last race, and unfortunately, Bellevue pipped it. But
I can't really remember that, but can you fill me in there?
I don't know much about the meeting, but I know it was, as I said, down to a last race. Because I think you suffered a lot of injuries towards the end of the year. Wolverhampton did, because Sam got injured just after being crowned world champion. I think you lost Graham Jones. I think if anyone's any Wolverhampton fans, please comment after this video to let me know if I'm wrong. But and I'm pretty sure that you were like in the middle order of the team or something like that. And of course, PK being then obviously was in the number one with Ronnie Corey, and people like that. Because I think you also lost Ronnie that year as well towards the end with a back injury. So it kind of unfortunately fell apart for Wolverhampton, which is when Bellevue picked up momentum and then won. And I think it was like a last meeting, sort of kind of like playoff final, because I think you finished level on points, but instead of having I think the for and against points wise, I think it was down to they did a one-off meeting at Monmore to see who would win the league. And unfortunately for you guys, it was Bellevue who won. But you had to wait a few more years. And you won a few more after that, so you're all right.
Yeah. One thing I remember with Bellevue there was it was really hard, I thought, to be up against them, because they had this rider Bobby Ott, if you remember him.
Bobby,
and that was hard to to beat him, and whatever, it was a hard racer.
Yeah, he
sure.
was. He was very much a hard race, and of course, again, around a small track, he could pull any shape he could to get around Monmore Green. I can imagine.
Yeah, unbelievable rider and really tough to compete with,
Mm.
from what I remember. And but he just disappeared. I wonder
Mm.
what happened to him. And
I
he
don't.
just
I don't
stopped,
know.
and I never seen him again.
Mm.
I guess
Because
he went to back to the States.
yeah, we went back to the States, but I know he did. I think he did. His last year was '96, the last year of the big amalgamation league with Hull, and then I think that's when he decided to call it quits. I think for
I
one reason or
was he
another.
still there in '96?
Yeah, because this is really testing my knowledge of Speedway now. I'm pretty sure he signed to do. He didn't come over in '95, I don't think, but he came over for '96, and that's because, of course, when the laydowns came out and things like that in the British League, and I think Hull was struggling, and then they signed him to make the team stronger, really. And then I think he did that was his last year, and he went back to the Americans. I don't think he did '97 over here anyway. He may have done something in the States, but I don't think he did anything over here. So, but yeah, he's one of those riders who just seem to just sort of disappear out the Speedway world
Yeah,
completely.
and he was fantastic. That guy, really. I mean, special character in that white suit he had,
Yeah.
and very spectacular to watch, from what I remember.
I can imagine it was hard to ride against as well,
Yeah.
because you didn't know which way it was coming from, you know.
No, that's
You know.
it. And when he got into the turn, he was leg trailing,
Oh yes,
and
yeah.
his knee to the ground. And you always, when you were chasing him, you always thought he was going to come off all the time.
Yeah, I
He
can
never did.
imagine that.
He never did.
But
So yeah,
yeah, unfortunately, there's been a lot of great names that, from when I was growing up, because you were riding when I was growing up and watching Speedway through the '90s and into the early 2000s and things like that. And as I'm an Eastbourne fan, the Eastbourne Wolverhampton rivalry for many years was
yeah,
fierce,
yeah,
and things like that. I mean, I watched only earlier today. I don't know if you remember it. It was from '94. It was the KO Cup quarterfinal, second leg at Eastbourne. A bit controversial from that meeting, with a few foul falls through say and things like that. But I mean, as a kid growing up, it was great to watch because the racing was fantastic then, and things like that in the
yeah.
British
It was
League.
all.
You know,
They didn't like Big Brother down there. I don't think.
but he was good. He was good when he guessed it. We liked him when he guessed it.
Yeah,
But yeah, and I mean, the rivalry in Speedway, no matter where you ride, it's great to have. And I think that's unfortunate with nowadays. It kind of misses that a little bit, where you get the crowd hyped up and things like that, and you get the old pantomime villain a little bit and stuff like that.
yeah. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember one time we were down there, and it was a huge fight in the middle of the track and also in the pits. I don't know what year it was, but everyone was swinging.
Yeah, well, yeah. If it has something to do with Mr. Martin Dugard, I think then it could have been swinging.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And Dean and David, and
yeah.
there was a lot of hard riders on there for sure. I
Mm,
remember it was always tough to go to Eastbourne
mm,
because you knew that it had to be sharp elbows and quite a demanding track in tight speedway,
mm. Well,
and a lot of good riders too.
because obviously Eastbourne had the two Steffens, Dano and Anderson,
Oh
at
yeah,
the time.
yeah.
So of course yourself and PK, the rivalries there, and that you want to get one over each other, and
Mhm.
things like that, no matter what you try and do. So I can imagine that's also a good thing to have as well. Was when you come to an away track, we went back to Monmore and you faced Eastbourne or whoever, and there's a Swedish bloke in there. I want to try and beat him tonight, and things like that.
Yeah, and then you had to raise Bob in the tractor too.
Yes,
He
yes,
was chasing us all the time. I
yes.
think I have to try and do that in Molilla, I think.
Yeah. You could take a leaf out of his book there, couldn't you? A little bit, you know.
Learn from him.
Yeah, exactly. But just turning back to obviously your racing and everything like that. Just looking at the individual front, because obviously you stayed for 94. You didn't come back to the British League in 95, because that's obviously you were World Under 21 champion in 94, beating a certain Mr. Jason Crump and Rooney Holter. Because obviously the previous year in 93, you missed out because Joe Screen beat you in a runoff.
Yeah.
What are your sort of memories of those two World Finals then? Because obviously that's the stepping stone into what was going to become the Grand Prix series.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I tried. I remember it was a big goal that I had to try and become successful in the under 21. And I was going pretty good in 93. I mean, it was in Pardubice, but yeah, Screeny got the better of me that time. But I think I carried that experience to take that meeting to runoff, and I lost it. And of course, you know, even it was a successful meeting for me, but I still came out of there as a loser. You know, even if you done a really good meeting, you kick yourself pretty hard after a thing like that. But I think I carried that momentum with me to the next final, and it worked as a very good experience for me that year, because I went down to runoff as well against Rooney Holter.
Because wasn't the final in Norway as well that year?
Yeah, it was. I think that used to be his home track. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was good opposition too, like you mentioned, Crumpy and Rooney and a lot of other good riders too in the meeting.
Which you continue to race against for the rest of your career, basically, you know, because I always remember Mark Ram saying that he rode against the likes of yourself, Lee Adams, Thomas Golob, and all of you guys, you raced against each other for the rest of your careers over across the world, you know, and in the Grand Prix series, in the World Finals, in everything really. So it's quite when I look back at it, it's quite interesting to see where like how you guys all progressed, obviously from the Modern 21s and where your careers all went, really, because it's really interesting. Because obviously Rooney's still riding, you know. I don't think he'll ever stop. You know, he loves riding so much, you know, and things like that. But it is very interesting when you look back at the riders that you rode against, because obviously then in '95, being World Under 21 champion, you automatically got seeded into the Grand Prix series. So, what was your sort of first experience of going up to Wroclaw and doing the series then?
Yeah, I remember I came into it really serious and whatever, and I was aiming to put a dent in it, you know. But unfortunately, I wasn't ready, and I struggled the whole year, and it sort of took me a few years after that to find myself again and find the confidence and gain more experience to be able to compete with the top boys. You know, I was a little bit of maybe I'm rude now, but I was a little bit like Andy Smith in that regard. I rode good to be able to qualify, but then once I was in the Grand Prix, I couldn't really make a success out of that. It was too hard. I had two good seasons that I'm happy about, but on the whole, it never. I wasn't good enough, basically. I think.
Yeah. I think the Grand Prix, especially in the early days, because from my point of view, looking back at it now, and things like that, maybe the having the Wild and 21 seeded into it was maybe a step too far for the likes of yourself, and then obviously Crumpy went into it the following year because he won it in '95. All right, Crumpy had a good wild card at Hackney in '95, but in the '96 season he
Did he
struggled.
win that meeting or?
He won the Hackney Grand Prix in
Yeah,
'96. He won that
yeah.
one. But the rain-soaked one in '95, he didn't win. It was
No.
the wild card, and I think he made like the B final, but he was like unbeaten in his first 3 races, and then unfortunately it fell apart. But I can imagine for yourself, as a young kid going into it. I mean, you just missed out on the last World Final in '94 into this brand new series, and you're mixing it with the likes of Hans Nielsen, Tony, Greg, Tommy Knudsen, Gary Havelock, Mark Laram. They're all top boys. I can imagine it was like you had to pinch yourself maybe a little bit to realize I'm riding against these boys and it's serious.
It's strange, because you obviously maybe a few years before, it's the sort of riders that you look up to, But then once I won the world final, you're so high on yourself at that moment that you just think, okay, I'll beat these guys too, no problem. And that's the sort of mentality you go into it with. But it's like you say, it was too steep of a learning curve there, so I couldn't compete. It wasn't fair really on any, mainly myself, I think. But I think that what let me down more than anything when it came to the Grand Prix career really is that I couldn't make 5 starts, like some of these riders. I was happy if I made 3 starts a night, even in a league meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever made 5 starts. And of course, you put yourself in a big handicap when you come to the world stage. If you can't make 4 or 5 starts in a league meeting, you're gonna struggle. Because you obviously with that sort of riders, no one is slow, and it's not easy in the European Speedway or the world stage. It's not those kind of tracks that you can. I mean, it's one thing if it's at Eastbourne or Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
Maybe you can pass Golub. It's hard to pass him in Big Gosh for sure.
Yeah, I know what you mean because again, I from myself again looking at your Grand Prix career, it wasn't till after I think you went back into it in '97 when it started to really sort of turn, especially towards the end of that season. Because I think you had one good meeting at Bradford. I think you might have made the B final, maybe, and then unfortunately again you just missed out on like the automatic qualification. But then I think you might have gone through the challenge and qualified from the challenge again.
Yeah.
And then in '98, Ollie Olsen decides to change the format and you have 2 rides and you could go home. The knockout system, and things like that.
I don't know your opinion there, but I think that thing wasn't too bad after all. I think it was for the masses, the people that aren't so interested as you and me. I think that format was maybe easier to understand for some people. And I think that's why they tried it. And I think it was a good try out. Maybe now they've gone back to a more normal speedway type of format. But I don't know. What's your opinion about it?
Well, again, I grew up through watching both sides of it. And I personally think that the system they have now is good, but I prefer the knockout system because you always got that one rider. Like you had a young Jarek Hampel, I think, one year, wild card, and he got all the way through to the semi-finals. Lee Richardson did the same thing at Cardiff, wild card. Things like you always got the odd rider who wasn't in the series properly, had nothing to lose, and would go up there and almost win the meeting. Well, another good one is Martin Dugard. Again, British Grand Prix in 2000, had nothing to lose, and he came through from nowhere to win the Grand Prix, and cap off his career, really, and that proved that the system did work because it gave the outsiders a chance. But I think that now especially nowadays, when you've got lots of Smarslick, Laguta, Ty, Doyley, Freddie, people like that. I think the gap between them and other riders is getting too big. You can just look at the people like Matty Zager, been in it for so long, and struggled this year, and stuff like that, and has missed out on his Grand Prix career. Okay, he's coming towards the end of his career, but I think that he would benefit from the knockout system because he could have 1 or 2 good Grand Prix and then get into the main event for the next Grand Prix, guarantee yourself 6-7 points, no matter what, and you're not coming away with 1 or 2 points. I think it's very much fors and against, but I think it worked for the time because I think when you were riding the Grand Prix series, you had a load of riders, a lot more riders who were at the same level, apart from a certain Ricardson, who was like the god and the guru of everything after a while. But I think you only had 1 or 2 riders who were that good. I mean, Nicky, and then you had Jason chasing him, and things like that, and Greg chasing him, Billy Hamill, riders like that who were consistently good, but they still had the bad meetings, the odd meeting, and then they'll be like a tumble down the table, and things like that. So I prefer the system now, but I also like the knockout system for when it was basically.
It was brutal. I remember because when you started from the beginning of the meeting, it was like you said, if you were a little bit unlucky, say in the first race you were unlucky, and then it was precious straight away on the next heat, and you could end up going home after 2 races and a long drive home after that. But I remember that once you get into the main event, it's a lot easier. Maybe you start from the inside and things like that. You win the first race, another inside gate maybe, and I don't know, but it was good that they tried it at least.
Because I think I might be wrong by this, but I think it was Ollie Olsen's idea to be something similar to the Golden Helmet in the Czech Republic a little bit. I think the format was a little bit like that. Because I remember Ivan Major saying that he loved the system. He thinks it was a great system. But I just think he had to get the even spread of the right riders in the field to make it really, really work. I think also it was good when you were in it because it didn't have quite as many poles in it. You had Thomas, you had Piotr Protasevich, you had Thomas Bojerski, people like that who were good riders, but you didn't have most of the field was going to be like Polish and things like that, which is unfortunate now. I think that Poland's such a dominant force with so many good riders. It kind of makes the series a bit flat, I think, a little bit because they're just so good. Not take anything away from the guys because they train hard and they work mega hard, and the Brits now are coming back, and things like that. So I hope for Sweden more than anything that the youth program with Tony working with it and all that sort of thing can pick it all back up again.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's one interesting thing about the sport now, which they presented this Discovery takeover. And I think that, I look forward to see what they do with it. I think the product is fantastic for sure. It's just what I would like to see is more, if they could make it sort of more into maybe look at Formula One a little bit. Because that's such a boring sport, really, compared to Speedway.
Oh, yes.
They sort of make it interesting for people with the behind the scenes and things like that, which I think is the way to go to try and make people, you know, it's a lot of fun stuff in the world to do, but you can't. But if you sort of scratch off the surface a little bit and get into it and get to know the riders a little bit more, then you sort of build on the interest with the fans and whatever. And I think that's the way to go. So it's going to be interesting to follow what they do with it. I think, like I said, I'll say it again, it's a really good product. I hope they can make it happen.
Yeah, and I mean, all by what they said in their press conference at the end of last season, you know, it sounds so great. You know, like they won't say you want to go behind the scenes. I know Monster did that a lot the last 2 years. They went behind the scenes on their YouTube channel, you know, chatting to Ty and Bartos and Magic, you know, and people like that. So you got to see like the rough edges of the meeting rather than seeing just the racing, and you're seeing the spotlight and everything. You're seeing behind the curtain a little bit, thinking, oh, what's that guy doing? You know, why is he doing that? You know, and things like that. I mean, as an ex-racer myself, you know, I always like, I spend more time in the pits because I'm more interested in that half the time than sometimes the racing, because I know the racing's racing, but you want to see what Ty's doing. You want to see what Arsenal's doing, you know, and things like that, and you think, why is he doing that? Questioning it, you know, things like that. But that's just me being mechanically knowledgeable.
Yeah, I'm the same though. I gotta say, I can become interested in almost anything, but I need to see the whole thing and sort of, it's got to grab your attention a little bit. What's going on behind the scenes? I think that's a good build up to the racing itself. So
exactly.
Hopefully more of that.
Well, fingers crossed and all that sort of thing. But I know, like most people, we could talk about everything about Speedway till the cows come home. So you know, but let's go back to talking about your career and things like that. I've got one race I would like to share with you. It's from the Grand Prix Challenge of '96. It's that last ditch runoff. I don't know if you remember it. It's between yourself, Jason Crump, Sam Malenko, and Andy Smith. I think it was the top two that went forward into '97, and of course you went through as the reserves as it was then. But do you remember much of this Grand Prix Challenge?
Not much. I think we used those solid block tires. I remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
But in this one, you're currently sitting second behind Jason. I'll give him a bit of a barge there. I'm coming through, sort of thing. And then there's Andy Smith following you through, and all that. Well, whilst that was all happening, Sam and Malenko's right on the fence.
Yeah.
But I get the impression that you weren't a fan of the solid block tires, like most of the riders weren't.
No, it was really hard to race on them because it was on the slick. It was really slick, and in the dirt, it hooked up a little bit too violent. I thought. I don't know whether it's like that or not really, but that's the feeling I had anyway.
Yeah,
it was a good race. That I can't say I remember much of it, but
you look fairly happy when you did win it though.
yeah, it was not an easy race for sure with Sam and Jason.
And I mean, it's great to watch that sort of thing because again, that's I remember watching those races and things like that, you know, and thinking, I want to do that. That's the sort of thing that's kind of inspired me to write, you know, and things like that is to do those sort of things. But no, I mean, that's one of many races I've got to come. I've got a few more to show you yet from your career, so you got so strap yourself in and see if you can remember any of it. But and just going back to obviously the British League and things like that, '96 you came back to Wolverhampton and you won the league and cup that year, because that was the last year of the amalgamation of one big league. And things like that, which is good for Wolverhampton, because they haven't won the league since '91 previous. So, do you remember much about winning that sort of that league in that year?
I remember that I really liked the format that year. I thought it was great to go to different, because with the other league, it was, I don't know how many times we were up against Cradley or Coventry, It was maybe 6, 8 times per season. So in that respect, it was quite interesting as a rider. And I think that the level came down a little bit, and I don't think that hurt it. Something like that would be interesting to see again, more teams. But I mean, that's maybe not so easy to do, but I liked it anyway. It was nice to come to different tracks.
Because then you were doing places like Edinburgh, and Middlesbrough, and places like that, all the second division tracks of the previous seasons, and mixing it up. And like I said, obviously earlier, talking about running against Bobby Orr, Hull, and places like that, and again, that's when the laydown was allowed to be used in the British League for the first time. So of course, a lot of people were blowing engines up left, right, and centre, I can imagine, because obviously, they were a bit unreliable, the laydowns when they first came out.
It was hard to get into that, but that's one thing you learn over a long career, that you gotta sort of move with the times and adapt to the different ridings techniques and whatever, because it was a lot different to ride a laydown compared to an upright. But if it was the right way to go, I'm not so sure, really. I think the racing with the uprights maybe was the best after all. I don't know what you think, but
I was asking the question: what would you prefer, the upright or the laydown?
I would, at the moment, I would prefer a change. I think it's a little bit too fast, the engines, and it can sometimes, I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes the racing is fantastic, but it's like, I don't know, the feeling I have is that today's Speedway, it's not that much about riding technique, and it's more like you gotta be lightweight, maybe make the start is important, and the people that do that, I mean, they just disappear most of the time. But sometimes, of course, you get good racing, 100%. But like you mentioned before, is a great example with Mate Saga, who's a fantastic rider, absolutely unbelievable speedway rider. But it's hard to see him struggle sometimes, because he's so fantastic on a bike, but it doesn't seem to pay off. That's a feeling I have.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because I think I see the same thing, that the gap is between certain levels in the Grand Prix. So you have like your top 6 who are going to be top 6 again for the next probably 5 years, maybe, and things like that. It's hard to see someone coming up. For example, someone like Philip, if he gets into the Grand Prix series, he's in the struggle to probably try and keep in the top 8, let alone like trying to even get into that top 6 sort of brand, really, and things like that. Because you look at last year's series, as much as it was a great series, with battling out with Schmarzlik, Laguta, it was only, in my opinion, it was a 2-horse race, which kind of made the series not like it should be. Whereas you should have had, you only had the 3 winners all year, and that was Magic, Janoski, and that was Artem and Bartos. And to me, that's not a Grand Prix series. A Grand Prix series, I always look at it as when the likes of yourself was riding, and you couldn't tell whether it could be one between 10 or 16 riders that on one night. You took it somewhere like, for example, when you went to Odsal in '97. Yourself had a great meeting, but you had someone out of the blue like Brian Anderson out of nowhere came along and won the meeting, and things like that, beating Hans Nielsen, Jimmy Nielsen, Tony, Billy Gregg, and things like that. I think the gap is going to get too big, and if they're not careful, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think that something that is rare nowadays is when you see this, when someone is really trying hard from behind and they put their wheels in line and make a perfect race like it used to be. You could get paid off even if you were behind. You could ride really well and let the bike just not slide that much through the corners and make long strides and whatever. And you really see the way they ride, they're gonna pick you up the they're gonna make that pass.
Yeah.
But it would take 3 laps to build up the speed. You know what I mean? That's something that's rare to see these days. I think it all happens so quick. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because when you talk about that sort of thing, it reminds me exactly of Freddie. Freddie would wind it up for 4 laps, and he would struggle to get second or even a third place, and stuff like that. Riders like that come to mind. I mean, even with Ty, he's a fantastic rider. They're all fantastic riders, but I just think the skill factor is coming out of it slowly, and it's more coming down to who's got the quickest motor. Things like that. Whereas again, I do a contrast back to when I was growing up and watching you guys ride. Okay, you still had to have the power, but you still had to have the track craft to try and beat people. I mean, look at Wolverhampton, for example. They called it Carlson Corridor for a reason, because PK could get that inside line and pull 6 lengths back on you, and things like that. You don't see that nowadays, really.
No, it's different. And I mean, if you look at like Per Johnson and in those days, how they worked on somebody a complete race through, and make the pass, on the last corner, stuff like that is very rare now that you see that. It's just start maybe the first corner, there's a pass, or it's not like that slow build up to a maneuver that you're gonna pull 3 laps down the line.
Like a kind of do or die effort, like we saw in that clip I just showed you with Samuel Malenko and Andy Smith battling behind you, and things like that. Sam winding it up and things like that. You don't really see that nowadays, which I think again will draw crowds back in, because you want that excitement. You want the riders to make a mistake, and you don't want them to always be perfect 4 laps. All right, so if you're on the winning team, of course you want to do 4 perfect laps, things like that. But when you want to watch a race, and things like that, I think that's why I like my history too much. I like watching stuff from the 90s and early 2000s, and stuff like that. When the racing, in my opinion, was great. It was good racing and things like that. But
for sure. And even earlier days as well, with Eric Gunderson and Hans Nielsen, and I mean some fantastic races, and even that race with Ole Olsen and Bruce Pennell.
Yes,
that's a fantastic race to watch. And Peter Collins, old races with him, fantastic rider, with the skills that is still unbelievable.
Yeah, Yeah, you still can't believe that sort of thing happened. I mean, even
Yeah.
some of the Swedish riders like Michanek had fantastic races, and people like that. The late Tommy Janssen, to name but a few, name a couple of riders, and I can imagine they were the sort of guys that you looked up to whilst you were obviously a kid and things like that, thinking, "Oh, I want to have a go at this and see what happens."
Yeah, but in them days it was like England was like Poland is now. It was super big in England, and now when I was growing up, I had my sights set on England. That was it. That was the Speedway Mecca in those days. Those days, yeah, for sure. To get
So,
over there and compete with the Americans and English riders, and they were way in front of what we were doing in Sweden.
but obviously, like you said earlier about Kelvin Tatum being number one at Mariestad, okay, PK was establishing himself as being as a heat leader then, and you were just coming through the ranks. And like you said, to look at someone like Kelvin when he first came over probably to Sweden, because didn't he pretty much spend his Swedish career with Mariestad? Was he there for a little while?
I think so. Yeah,
yeah.
I think he,
Because I think he was there for his first year. He came over. He was near enough unbeatable, and things like that. Because
unbelievable.
Yeah.
That year. Well, he rode good, don't get me wrong, the whole way through, really, but it was absolutely fantastic. The first year he came over, I remember he was on Goddens, tuned by Eddie Bull, I think, and it was super fast,
I can imagine,
yeah.
Was it a case of you go up to him at the end of the season and say, "Hey, Kel, how much you selling that bike for? I want that for next season."
yeah, for sure. Yeah, but he had a mechanic from the village where me and PK grew up. Kelvin did. His name was Lars Hammerberg.
I recognise the name. Recognise that name. Yeah.
And he worked. He worked for Kelvin throughout his career, and then he joined me after that, and he followed me to the Grand Prix. And that was a big, for sure, a big thing. It was the years, my best years, really. He was in the pits with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see the influence there all the way through, really, and.
Well, that's good because if you had a good background team, I mean, even the likes of Tony needed a great background team for him to work. And I mean, it was when he had Ollie Trelevainen in his team that he rode well, and things like that. You notice that his results came then, and with Carl Blumfelt, engine tuner and things like that. Was you kind of a rider who used to swap around a lot with engine tuners, or was you a case of that you had one and you stuck by him and that was that sort of thing?
Well, I wasn't completely with one. It depended on if I was happy. You want to stay, don't you, for as long as possible? But no, when the career is long, it's 100%. You gotta move around. You can't keep the same because you progress maybe in different directions and things like that. You got to work closely with whoever is tuning your engine, and so I had a small kind of tuner shop when I rode for Mariestad in the early days, but I was very happy with it. It was two old riders from Karlstad in Sweden that they were quite big in Sweden as tuners at the time. So they started for me, and then after that, I think it wasn't until I came to England I started work with Carl Blumfelt. through Sam, obviously, and worked
Yeah.
with him on the engines. So that was sort of a little bit of a package that you got when you came to Wolverhampton, and that was very successful for many years. And Carl, he was involved obviously with the under 21 success in '94. Made a fantastic engine for that meeting, which I will never ever forget. You know.
But yeah, no. So it's always interesting to know, because obviously, you know, you hear again nowadays riders going from tuner to tuner each year and not really being settled, you know, and things like that. You know, it's just more of a curious question more than anything, because you know, the average Speedway fan would obviously be interested in that sort of thing. You know, again, picking behind the curtain a little bit. You know,
but I think it worked the way a lot of riders was working in those days was that you sort of had more of a close relationship with whoever was tuning your engine, and you sort of worked together to try and come up with something that suited you, you know. And I think nowadays most of the riders are just getting whatever the tuners produce, and everyone seems to be on the same equipment more or less, and whoever is in, you know, doing the fastest stuff at the moment, they all seem to try and join there, you know, rather than working on a personalized engine for yourself. And I mean, it's only so much power you can get out of a Speedway, and it's more to do with making it suitable for your riding style, and that takes time, and it's a relationship that you gotta have with a tuner long time. After Bloomfeld there, where I was most happy, I think, was with Blixt. You know.
Oh yes, yeah,
Blixt,
yeah.
And he, going back to we talked about before, I'm sure that when Martin Dugard won the Grand Prix in Coventry, I think that was on a Blixt engine. Ask him sometime.
I'll have to ask him that question.
Yeah, ask him.
If it's
true. I think it is, but I'm not 100%. But I think, yeah. So yeah, that because he was a rider, and we really good relationship with him, and he made for many years really top equipment for me. I also had in '96 season, I think it was it that race you showed before? Was that '96?
Yeah, that was '96. Yeah, that was, yeah.
I had a Swedish tuner that I was a lone Speedway rider at this place. It was called Sandberg Racing, quite local to Mariestad, but he was tuning road racing engines. And I went down there in the winter and gave him a few engines, and you know, made a sort of deal with him. And so he did that season, and he did later on, I think it was the year I got injured, I was back there as well. And it was good because I was alone there. And I could keep all the secrets to myself.
Yeah, because I can imagine that was always that little worry. You had 6 other riders going to this one bloke that you're also using. You're thinking, what is he telling them that I've got in my engine, or am I using their old parts? You know,
that's how it works, you know. I mean, the knowledge that you get is, I mean, it gets out there. So it's good to be working close with somebody. That's my top tip.
There you go. Any up and coming rider? there's a tip for you there.
Mm.
But just switching gears on your own career and everything, looking more again on the international front, you managed to win the World Team Cup 4 times. Starting off in '94 when you were as the reserve with, I think it was Tony and Henke in the World Pairs / World Team Cup event in Germany. Unfortunately, you didn't get a ride, but you still managed to pick up a gold medal for being a good standby bloke, really, which was good. But I can imagine for yourself that was again another eye opener for that season.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was a lot of good riders that wanted that spot, So if you think about that, because it was Bo Wirebrand at the time who was the team manager, and he put in the team Henke and Tony, and when you think about the riders he could have picked. And that's the way I look at it, obviously. It's like true what you say. I was given a gold medal that I didn't really deserve. But it was, I have to thank Tony and Henke for that, I guess. Yeah, they rode great. But it was a big honor for me to just be part of the team, really. And that was, through the success I had in under 21.
Well, maybe Bo was thinking that you're the hot prospect at the junior level. Maybe it benefited you more to go there as maybe get 1 rise, maybe 2, depending on how Henke or Tony did, things like that. Because obviously that year was unfortunately the year that Per got hurt, wasn't it, in '94? So, of course, you guys as a team, were struggling probably mentally, knowing obviously you're riding for Per, basically, things like that. So, but maybe, as I say, Bo thought that you're the up-and-coming junior. You deserve the spot to be there to soak up the experience, if not get a rise, and things like that, which again is beneficial for yourself in your long career that you did have. But fast forwarding it a few more years into 2000 was the next time that you won the gold medal with Sweden, because obviously then the format went back to the team event. And this was at Coventry when it was down to Tony and Mark Laram in a runoff. To win the championship. I mean, on a tricky Coventry track, if I remember rightly.
I don't remember that, but I remember the runoff, because I'm pretty sure that Tony didn't have the best of meetings. I don't think maybe I did either, but we managed to get to this runoff. And the team manager, which I think was Mats Olsen.
Yeah, that's it.
At the time, he obviously Tony was Tony, and he decided to go with him in the runoff. And I remember that. Not 100% off my memory from it, which could be wrong, I have to say. But the memory I have is that he struggled a little bit in the meeting, but once he knew that it was a runoff and it was about the World Championship that day, it was like turning on a switch in the pits. And he just went out there and just made such a start that it's unbelievable start,
Yeah.
And obviously Mark Lorum, not easy to beat in a situation like that.
No, because I remember the meeting, watching it myself and things like that, and it was the runoff, and like you said, Tony, whenever it came down to that critical situation, no matter who it was for, himself or any team, if he needed it, he could do it, sort of thing. Like you say, I think he had a poor meeting. I think he might have scored something like maybe 10 points, for example, or something like that, 10, 11 points. And then, because I think that was also when you had the team as in it was a pair of you rather than individuals going out. So I think it was yourself and maybe you and PK were together, or you and Henke, or something like that. You know, was the format. Again, just looking at the team, then it's a strong team for Sweden. You know, like I say, Tony, yourself, PK, Henke. You know, Nicholas Klingberg, I think, was reserve, you know, that night and things like that. But the runoff was a case of that Tony made a start, like you said, and Mark was chasing him down, but hit a hole on bends 3 and 4 and crashed on the first lap. And then that was the end of the runoff, basically. And of course, that gave the goal to Sweden.
Do you think he would have passed him?
I don't know. Put my British hat on.
Yeah,
I would say yes, he did. He would have passed him, but I think as a racer, I think the track wasn't good enough for Mark to pass. It wasn't. I don't think it was really a Mark around sort of track. It was more like a case, I think, of making a start and sort of going, as long as you missed the holes and things like that. Because that's also again when Martin Dugard crashed and broke a couple of ribs at that meeting as well. In hitting the same hole. But Mark may have passed him, but I think looking at the track at the time, it was too slick, in my opinion. The dirt was far too wide. And it was unfortunate because it was a great meeting with a great field, and I think the track wasn't quite there for Coventry, you know, and things like that. But it was a great day for Sweden. Again, top of the world again, you know, as a team. You know.
Yeah, for sure. But my feeling in England is that the day meetings, I never used to like them so much in England. I thought it always suited me better with the what was it, 8:30 start or
7:30, like an evening meeting. Yeah. All underneath the floodlights and you know, and things like that.
And you could keep the moisture in the track in a better way and whatever. Because it's probably true what you say. It was a bit on the dry side, I think, Coventry that time, and the night meeting there, things might have been different. I don't know.
Might have been, in that you never do know. But it is what it is. And then again, fast forwarding a couple of seasons later, because obviously 2001 BSI changed the format and made it the World Team Cup, the week long series. And of course that's when you had the 6-man races for the race off and the final. And the first year was at Wrocław, and the carnage and everything of the race off. I remember because that's when they still had the air fences down the straights, and things like that. Like they took it away for the final, but for the race off, I always remember because obviously Team GB made the race off. I can remember seeing Paul Hurry hitting the air fence in one race, and then you had Samuel Malenko hit it in another one, and things like that. But what was your sort of thoughts of that when you first heard that they're going to do 5-man races?
I wasn't too keen on that myself, you know, because when you're doing Speedway, it's like you're so used to that you have 3 riders, and all of a sudden you're gonna have 4, and you know, some situations you just do stuff automatically, you know. Without thinking, it's just in your spine, you know. You just react to something, and a format like that, when you put another rider in, you might do something and just miss that. Oh shit! It's another one there, you know. So it makes it a lot more dangerous for sure, you know.
Yeah, I think like a lot of things in Speedway, the idea is great, but the reality of it is it wouldn't work unless you went to somewhere like Pardubice, you know, which is built for 5 riders, or even maybe someone like Vastavik. You know, you could fit 5 riders on the track, you know, and get away with it.
Exactly, like you say, yeah.
Because I know that when you guys won the World Cup in 2003, it was still 5-man races, but round Voyens, and Voyens isn't the widest track with 4 riders on it all the time. So I can imagine going to that first corner, it was a bit scary to know where you're going to come out, whereabouts in the field you're going to come out at.
Yeah.
But fortunately, you had again 2003 was when you won it again, but you didn't win it with Tony because I think Tony went ill for the final. I think
Oh,
'cause you
yeah,
had you had David Rood come in and become the hero. I think it was, and Peter Lung. The
yeah,
two young kids came in basically and
yeah, yeah.
and won it for you guys.
Yeah, it was a good thing we had going that year, because if I remember correctly, we went to the final,
Yeah.
and then something happened to Tony. He got ill somehow, and everyone thought that, Sweden is just they're gonna do nothing
Mm.
without him.
Mm.
So it was a good way to get into that meeting. The pressure was off, and you can, just strike from below, and
Mm.
that's how I think we came together as a team. We all did our thing, and it worked out.
Mm.
So it
Yeah.
was fantastic to be able to achieve that. So I really regard that as one of the biggest success for me personally, to be able to compete without Tony that time, and still manage to win. We pulled it off, and it was a great feeling. I don't think it's only me that feels that way.
Mm. That's the one that's the special one, because it
Yeah.
is the one without like you say, without your number one, without Tony.
Mhm.
You had basically you had 5 men instead of 4 men and Tony, sort of
Yeah.
thing, kind of situation, and it probably made you more the underdogs, because I know
Yeah.
Australia was still the favourites at that time, because they had Lee, Jason, Todd, Jason Lyons, Boise, people like that, and they could always do it.
Incredible team. Yeah, it was. Australia was, but also the other teams. I mean, it was really hard,
Mm.
stiff competition for sure, and we, like you say, we became underdogs, and it worked for us really
Mm.
well that night. And we
Mm.
had Tony Olsen,
Yeah.
one of his biggest successes as the team manager for Sweden
Mm.
a year.
Mm. And of course, you guys managed to retain it in 2004 on these shores down at Poole. Again, on a great evening to watch as a fan, and of course there was me not being patriotic at all and cheering on Team GB like my heart's content to win the thing. But again, to win it by a point against Team GB, it was down to PK to win the final race.
But was there a bit of controversy in that?
I was about to say, yeah, there was, because that was the meeting that Scotty saw a red light in the crowd and stopped. And then also there was a bit of controversy with Hans Andersen, if I remember rightly, that a
Yeah,
lot of people thought that he saw PK coming past and shut off and let him through and blocked Scotty, and all the controversy you would expect from a
yeah,
world final, and things
yeah,
like that. But
yeah.
I think it was a case of that PK fell off in his first race and then went unbeaten the rest of the meeting after he fell off, after he got excluded in his first race. But do you remember much about that night, or was it just
Not
like
really. I don't think I had the best of meetings. I think that we had some test matches, I think, that year before. And I remember it was working fantastic. But for some reason, no, it didn't work for me that night. But I did enough, I guess,
Mhm. Yeah,
So I
because
didn't.
you need 4 or 5 men to pull it through to win the meeting in the
Yeah,
day. So
yeah. And what I remember also from these meetings is that it's, especially when the pressure is on and you're a favorite,
mm,
and your teammates, they want to win, and you want to win yourself, and it's a 4-team tournament, and you
Mm.
only gain a point maybe. There's normally another team that's chasing you, and if you win the race, they're behind you. You make 1 point, and then in the next race, someone might touch the tape or have an engine failure, and it's another
Yeah.
4 races before you can catch up, and it's a lot of pressure.
Mm.
And especially you feel the pressure, at least I felt, from your teammates. You want to win for them,
Mm.
and don't let them down, and that sort of thing.
Mm.
It
And
was
cool.
hard, and long meetings as well. I don't know how many races it was, but
I think it was like 25 races,
yeah.
So would it have been, I think, 5 program races, and then the top scorers and what the nominated races, I think, were the last 5 races, So it was a long program. Obviously, it was great for the fans because it
Yeah,
went
and
down to the last race.
this
But
Joker as well. I didn't like that. I didn't
it,
like that.
it was good when it worked for you,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was awful when it worked against you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, and I mean that was the last time that you won a gold medal with Sweden as a team and things like that, because then obviously then the following year with 2005 was when you had your injury, and things like that. Well, I'll touch on that in a little bit, but I just want to go back to just talking about the Grand Prix series again, because obviously you say you had your best years in probably 2002 and 2003. Would you say were your best seasons in the Grand Prix?
Yeah, in the Grand Prix, yeah. If you
Mm.
look at the table, for sure, I had the best season. But when was it? You said 2002. I think it
Mm.
was. I
Yeah.
finished 5th overall, and then I really felt that year that I could challenge. You know,
Mm.
but I decided to change tuner and change a lot of stuff,
Mm.
and to get that little bit extra.
Yeah.
But it worked against me, and I went backwards. And I think I finished 14th or something
Mm.
like that the following year. And then I went out of
Mm.
the Grand Prix.
Mm.
And that's the year we're now at 2005. And that was I was out of the Grand Prix, and I rode in Poland and Sweden. I rode in England as well, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you rode with. I think you were still with Wolverhampton. Yes, you
yeah,
were Wolverhampton in 2005.
yeah. And I had I think that's my best year
Mm.
as a rider was 2005, and I wasn't in the Grand Prix. That was a shame.
Mm.
But
Maybe that was because you had no pressure of the Grand Prix series. You could just enjoy your league racing, and
yeah,
open
and
meetings and things like that.
I remember this is the year I went back to this other tuner as well.
Mm.
In that was quite local to Mariestad. There, this
Mm.
road racing bloke
Mm.
helped me, and I had 2 engines that I rode the whole year,
Mm.
and especially one was super fast. Really, one of the fastest in the world for sure that year, and.
Mm.
Yeah, worked fantastic. But unfortunately, I got injured and
Mm.
didn't come back.
No, that's the thing. It's unfortunate with the injury.
Mm.
A high speed crash. Wasn't it? Did you? Because I looked it up, and I think what I found online was the fact that you broke your wrist and thigh,
Yeah,
but the thigh was really badly broken,
yeah,
and you had to have it pinned. But I
yeah.
think you said that you wouldn't ride all the time you had the pin in it
That's correct. Yeah,
because of it either you crashing and damaging it, or it was a psychological thing or something maybe.
I think no, I think I spoke to someone about that. I think might have been Joe Screen
Mm.
that I spoke to regarding that, and he, if I remember correct, his advice was to take it out,
Mm.
and yeah, so I consulted with the doctors and whatever, and yeah, we made that decision, and it was another operation quite late before the next season in 2006. I think I
Mm.
was in the hospital sort of at March, April time.
Mm.
And then I hadn't done anything physical the whole winter. I wasn't ready,
Mm.
basically. And I went straight from the hospital bed, straight on the bike and rode. And it's a big mistake.
Yeah.
That it
Yeah.
is. I got straight in the on that sort of level, again. So it was sort of the same feeling as I was on a high, and like I was in '94,
Mm.
and I got into too deep water there, and I just blew it basically, and it just set me back, and struggled with self confidence and stuff like that after that.
Yeah, because again, doing the research before the chat we're having tonight, you went to Lakeside halfway
Mm.
through the season because obviously they were struggling with injuries. And I think they had AJ out, and you came in to replace AJ or something similar. You were
Yeah,
replacing someone like that, and you dropped. I think you were like a close to a 9-point man the previous season, having like say your best season in 2005. And then you came away from Lakeside with like a 6-point average.
yeah,
Because like you just said, confidence, and things like that. But also, you were riding in 3 leagues as well, because I think that was your last year in Poland as well with Ostrov as well in 2006, and
yeah.
also you ran with the Piraterna in Sweden
Mm.
at the time. So you're still living the busy lifestyle, even though maybe you weren't quite enjoying it like to the full you had done previously.
No, no. Like I said, I made the big mistake. I should have, looking in hindsight, I should have not ridden at all
Mm.
2006, and just worked on to get back to shape and come back maybe 2007 instead. You know,
Mm.
but it's always hard, when you gotta carry that sort of an average as
Mm.
well in speedway. It's never good to come back. It's not a good situation, because everyone is expecting you to carry the 9-point average, and then you know no matter what you do, you're gonna let the team down for
Mm.
sure if you
Mm.
have a high average, and then like you say, drop from 9 to 6.
Mm.
It makes it impossible for that team to win.
Mm.
So it's all on you. And the same story in Sweden, and
Mm.
everywhere else I went was the
Mm.
same story. And yeah, it was tough, but you know, you get
Mm.
through it and build.
Mm. Do you have any problems with the leg now, or is it totally normal and fine as best as it can be?
I never went back to my 100% strength that I used to have, and
Mm.
I'm still not to this day. But it's nothing that hurts me in normal life. But
Mm.
as a speedway rider, yes, I think it's never became as strong as it needed to be.
Mm.
But you know, not blaming that, but I think the biggest mistake I did was that I was unfit
Mm.
in the beginning of that season, and it hurt me a lot. And it's a strange situation as well, because not only do you uh, hurt your own self confidence, but it's obviously when you're a top man and people beat you, they're gonna feel better as well about it. It doesn't matter if you're shit at the time. I'll beat him, They don't think they think about, yes, you are the 9-point average guy, but they really beat someone that's not so strong at the moment. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're beating the name rather than the rider, so to speak.
So,
It's getting one over the rider. I know what you mean. Yeah, 100%. Because
so it's like the lions goes for a hunt on the savannah.
Yeah.
They always look for the weak target.
And unfortunately, that sort of time you became a weak target, which is unfortunate to say. But just looking towards the end of your career, because I'll go back. I've got a few races I want to show you because there's some. We're ending on a positive note from this chat. But you had a couple of seasons with Dackarna till 2008 when you stopped then, and kind of must have said that's it. I've had enough. And then you decided to come back a few years later to ride for Dackarna in 2015. What was the sort of thinking behind that?
But I didn't stop though.
Oh, didn't you stop? Oh, okay.
But I was in a bad cycle for a while there, because I went from, I had this problem with carrying this high average. I had the same, like we talked about, I had the same in Poland, had the same in Sweden. I was with Dackarna 2006, but it was the same story, really high average, went straight down, and I destroyed for the whole team, So I had to leave that place. Well, I didn't have a place there.
Yeah.
So I went to Motala. Had 2 years there, but I didn't really get going there either. But then I got to Eskilstuna.
Okay, yeah.
Mirana. And there was a team manager there, Bo Johnson. And he was, in the beginning of my career, he was like a scout, for English clubs. But he has a long history in Speedway, whatever. He knows Speedway in and out, and he believed in me still, right? So he signed me. I went there, and I started to go good.
Oh, that's
but
good.
The club went bankrupt.
Oh no!
Yeah, so I went to another place. I went to Gislaved, Leon.
Yeah.
And I finished on a high there, and we won the league. And then they went bankrupt.
Oh no!
And I went to Stockholm and rode for them, and they went bankrupt. Right? So you're thinking now I'm expensive.
Yes, it has crossed my mind. Yeah.
No, it's just unfortunate stuff. But yeah, bad luck, really, that this happened. But then finally, I get back to Dackarna and get in there, and I'll finish my career there.
Yeah, but I mean, like I say, just a bit unfortunate because obviously with the way that Swedish Speedway is, it's like England. You're losing clubs, and things like that. Not necessarily losing the tracks because I think a few of the tracks are still there. It's just a case of the fact that the promotions are spending too much money or whatever the situation is. Because having spent a bit of time in Sweden myself, with riders and things like that, you hear places like Linköping, it's still there. It's still a stadium. It still can be used, but it's a case of that no promotion's gone in there to revive it. You think like that. Which is where I think you guys are very fortunate in that sense, that you still got the tracks which you
Mm.
can still practice on,
Yeah.
and things like that, but you just haven't got the people there to put the money in, unfortunately.
Without knowing for sure, but going back to that link open, I think
Mm.
they might have the Swedish final there this year.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think things are
Mm.
happening there.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, because that's a great track
Mm.
in Sweden,
Mm.
and a nice stadium and everything. And the town is a little bit bigger
Mm.
than normal for Speedway.
Mm.
Like Målilla is just in the forest, basically.
Yeah.
So that could hopefully,
Fingers crossed, because obviously, again, that's a former Grand Prix venue.
Yeah,
It was there for the first 5 years of the Grand Prix series, things
yeah,
like that. And
fantastic track.
mm, yeah, because
It is.
I always remember watching the early days of the Grand Prix. They seemed to put brand new shell on it for some reason, and it looked a bit deep in places, and and
It
stuff
is.
like that.
Yeah, yeah.
A bit harem scarum type of thing. But no, it's good. It's good to hear that sort of thing more than anything. Because when I was in Sweden, I spent time at Hallstavik,
Mhm.
and places like that, and got to know Mikael Turnberg a little bit, and help out a few of the Division One kids, things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think Swedish Speedway is fantastic. I love watching Swedish Speedway anyway.
Yeah, you
Um,
have to make your way over then.
I think it's Manila's on my bucket list of speedway tracks to go to. So I will come over. I think at some point in the future, and tap you on the shoulder and go, "You remember me?"
Mm.
That sort of thing. But just going to your last season in 2015, wasn't your last meeting not in Sweden but in America in the end? We did the rest of the world meeting.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, up at that, and yeah, fantastic night there. Really good atmosphere at the stadium there. So
Mm.
I'm happy. It was a nice ending
Yeah,
to
at
the trip.
Fast Fridays, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You went to there. So
yeah,
I mean, it's a great venue. Again, it's a track I think which has got long straights and a bit of tight corners, and yeah, and I have actually got a bit of footage of one of your races from here.
oh yeah,
So again, I think you're off of gate 3 in this one. Um, and yeah, you had a good meeting. I think you scored about 10 points, something like that. So you can't have been that bad with it. But, getting a bit tight on the first corner and up the inside and
yeah,
away you go, sort of thing.
yeah. That's the Carlson corridor again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, these sort of events are fun events, and I think you actually rest of the world beat America in the end,
Yeah,
and things like that. So nice way to sort of bow out of your career, having a fun meeting and winning a bit more silverware.
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was though. I was there 2 years in a row, and this is 2015. Yeah,
Yeah, this was one.
but
Yeah.
I had one more year.
Oh,
With,
right. Okay.
yeah, with Dackarna, and then
Mm.
so I went there in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't plan it, so to speak, but I thought that I want to come over again. So I
Yeah.
had one more season with Dackarna, and then we went over again. Uh, and I said to the promoter there that it's my last meeting. And he made a little bit of a thing about it, and
Mm.
I had a speech in front of the crowd and whatever. It was nice,
Mm.
very nice.
Yeah, because I think it was to do with Steve Evans getting
Yes.
the likes of yourself and PK over, because
Mm.
obviously he's a Wolverhampton fan through and through. If you don't know him, you know it for sure that he's a Wolverhampton fan. He tells
Mm.
you enough, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, like I say, what a nice way to sort of bow out, and things like
Yeah.
that. Enjoying
Yes.
yourself more than anything,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I have got a bit of footage from another meeting featuring Wolverhampton. I don't know if you quite remember the 2004 playoff semi-final against Ipswich.
maybe.
It's a couple of races
Mm.
I've got. The first one being the Heat 13 incident. I don't know if you remember that one, where I think you and Scotty were having a good race or something. I think it was, and he fell off, and you had to kind of push the bike home a little bit. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember it. Yeah, coming off gate number 1 here. But I mean, again, high pressure meeting in the Elite League. I think Wolverhampton were the underdogs going into the playoffs, and of course, this was when it was like the one leg. All get a bit tight there with Hans and Scotty. So yeah, it was a do or die meeting, really.
Yeah, it was that meeting had most of it because, yeah, I do remember this race because my bike stops here, if I remember correctly.
Mm. Yeah, it does. It does stop. I think it's
And
on this
I
next
think
lap.
that, yeah, and I think that Scott, he could have got up there.
Yeah, he did, but I don't think he realised because
No,
yeah,
he didn't realize that.
I think your
that
chain fell off as well in that race.
yeah,
That's why you
so
stopped.
if you imagine how narrow margins it is,
Mm,
if he would have seen that and not left the track, they would have won the meeting.
mm. And this is the hardest thing in Speedway, pushing a bike with a steel shoe and Kevlars and everything else on. It's one thing riding the thing, but pushing the thing home's, just as knackering.
Yeah.
Yeah. And run the cameraman over as well. But I mean, I can imagine that was a great night at Monmore, because of it, the fans there, so passionate, and
It was seemed to be a good crowd too.
yeah, well, again, like I said, I think it was to do with the playoffs, and then it went down to a runoff. I don't know if you remember, um, for that meeting because you both finished level on points and he didn't have a replay. It was like I say, it was a one-leg shootout. It was in those days, and I've got the footage here of that race off, and it's you against Hans Anderson. So do you remember much of this race off at all?
No,
No,
I don't really.
no, no. There's everyone sort of praying, but it was a good race because obviously it's a classic match race sort of thing. Hands buzzing all around behind you and everything, but you using the old knowledge of the track, I think really paid sort of dividends in the end. And to get Wolverhampton through to the final against Paul, I think it was that year. I think that was also meant to be, I think, Sam Omalenko's last season as well. And I think him and Peter Adams are hoping that you guys got to the final.
Yeah.
But I think this is the only time still that the playoff semi-final or any playoff meeting in the UK was decided by a runoff. I don't think any other playoff semi-final or final has been done either on the Golden Heats format or on the runoff format since this meeting. So it's a bit of knowledge, a bit of history there for yourself there.
Yeah, like you said earlier, this meeting with Bellevue that came down to so few points as well. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
A long season that comes down to just 1 point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fantastic when it happens like that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Good feeling.
Oh yeah, I can imagine it's an amazing feeling because of course you're doing it for every single home fan that's there, sort of thing, and yeah, that's what you drive for, isn't it? Is that one moment, and of course, you've probably been on the flip side of that yourself as well, where you've just missed out, or whatever,
It's a brutal sport. Any sport is brutal. It's like football when they do penalties. Yeah, that's not easy.
No, and don't tell us English about that either. But I'm going to wrap it up for tonight, Michael. Thank you for coming on the show tonight. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and it's recurred a few good memories.
Yeah, for sure.
Of everything.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to hear your opinion on the modern day Speedway as well with everything. And hopefully all the Wolverhampton fans who follow me or when I share it around Facebook and online will absolutely love this. I know I got a good reaction when I shared it the other day. So there you go. Is there anything you want to say to the Wolverhampton fans or anything like that, or any of your fans from over here?
Yeah, I'm. It's a weird feeling to do this with you because it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like it's an eternity ago. It's like it's weird, but yeah, for sure I miss. There's a lot of people that I miss that I'll never see no more, and a lot of people that's left Speedway, I suppose. So, but it's just a different time, different life.
Exactly, and now you're a track curator, at Melilla, so
Yeah.
all your knowledge is still there, and it's obviously working because you won the league, so it must be working.
Yeah, it worked good this year, for sure. For the team, they all seem to be. I can tell you that it was probably the easiest year that I've had so far because it was not a lot of complaints from the home riders, which is what you want. So it seemed to work, and we got it sort of working good most of the meetings. And it's important. I know it's important for the riders, and it's a hard job because no matter what you do, someone is gonna. It doesn't suit everybody. So no matter what you do, it's you're gonna get criticism on it. But yeah, it worked, and I'm happy for the boys.
That's good then. So what's harder then, riding the speedway bike or being a track curator?
I think it's harder to ride, really. But no, in that respect, like I'm talking about, because some riders they want it dry or grippy or slick or whatever, grippy starch or so it's hard to it's impossible to please everybody. So I just try and make small changes, and so I gradually feel the improvements or whatever we're doing now. Working close with Mr. Turnberg.
Yeah, I can imagine you are. Yes.
Yeah. So and it works good. Fantastic team manager.
That's good. Again, former rider, knows the ins and outs of it, and things like that. I mean, how was Peter as a team manager?
Same with him. Same sort of experience. Although maybe as a team manager, I'll say Turnberg has maybe the upper hand, but no, I think it helps a lot to just understand the rider's perspective all the time and understand my perspective as a trackman, and just the deep understanding that we want to try and reach the goals that we set and do it together.
Well, that's good to hear, mate. It's good to hear that you're still actively involved, more than anything, and you're not like some riders who unfortunately get lost to the sport.
Yeah,
like
I think that's one of the problems that Speedway has, unfortunately, is that there's a lot of knowledge out there, but it doesn't seem to, it's a shame that we can't keep those people in the sport to move it forward.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing, and I think other sports are maybe better than Speedway in that regard.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think it's important.
Oh yeah, 100%. You've got to have knowledge of everything, really, from a rider's point of view. As an ex-rider, then you can see it from a different side of the fence, and things like that. It's if you've got the knowledge there, you might as well just use it, and use it to the best ability you can. But yeah, anyway, I will wrap this up now because after just going on about that a little bit. But cheers for coming on tonight, Michael. It's much appreciated, mate. It's taking the time out to hear your stories, and things like that. And
Thank you very much.
I'd say to everyone who's been watching, thank you for watching, and if you've been listening on the podcast and everything as well. Hope you enjoyed listening to this as well. We describe it as best we can for you podcast listeners as well. But make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and to Spotify, Apple Podcast, and we're on everywhere else at the moment. But this will be shared about on there, so make sure you share it with your friends, your family, and everyone. And hopefully you enjoyed it tonight. But for tonight, thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.